Part 4. The plains were brightly lit by the moon, and in their midst was a military field camp. No, there were no tents here or a wooden palisade, so it was doubtful whether it actually qualified as a camp. It would be more accurate to say that there was a military unit on the grass. Just about everyone was lying on the ground, immobile from fatigue. The winter air was cold enough to dye their exhaled breath white, but the fact that they could sleep in conditions like these without bedrolls or the like was a sign of how tired they really were. Amidst all these people, who had collapsed like puppets whose strings had been cut, one man was walking. He was the general of the defeated army, Barbro. Should he feel lucky that he had survived, or should he complain because he had met such a powerful foe? The goblin army that had appeared at Carne village had been a powerful foe. No, his forces had been no match for them at all. With just a single contact with the enemy, Barbro's forces had been crushed in an instant, and he had no choice but to flee in defeat. His soldiers had been killed so fast it was as though they had melted away. What exactly were those goblins? Barbro wanted to figure that out too. The possibilities which came to mind were that they were the army of a huge nation of goblins within the great forest of Tob. That was the easiest explanation to accept when one considered that they had encountered them south of the forest. The other nobles who had survived with him seemed to have reached the same conclusion too, and they had said so several times to console themselves during their flight here. Some said that their luck had been bad. Some said that the army they encountered was composed of their elite troops. Some said that just bringing back news on those goblins would be a great effort. Are they idiots? Barbro clenched his fists tightly. Defeat was defeat. It was true that the goblins had been strong. Anyone who fought them would have understood why there had been no hope for Barbro. However, those who knew nothing would simply think that Barbro was the prince who had been beaten by goblins. He would surely become the butt of many jokes. Damn it, damn it, damn it. A fire burned in his belly. That was the reason why Barbro could not sleep, despite being as tired as the soldiers. Once he closed his eyes, he could hear the insults and mocking laughter that would surely await him after he returned to the royal palace. For Barbro, the war was over. In his present state, there was no way he could hustle to the Cat's Plains and take part in the battle against the Empire. Just then he felt a presence. It did not come from the men lying on the ground, but from the direction they had fled from. Were they fleeing soldiers who had caught up with them, or a goblin pursuit force? His heart filled with terror, Barbro shifted his line of sight, and in the next moment, his face filled with puzzlement. That person had probably noticed Barbro. They raised a hand in a casual greeting. Hi. He had no idea when they had appeared in the middle of these plains. Not far away, 20 meters at the most, stood a ravishing beauty, with a smile on her face that could only be described as innocent. If this were a city, Barbro would surely stare at her. However, this was the middle of a plain. There were no villages around. The strangest thing was the clothes she wore. They looked like a maid's outfit. If she were an armed and armored woman, he might have guessed that she was an adventurer. However, this was not possible. Is she a monster? That thought rose throughout his mind. Certain monsters were very beautiful. Fairies, for example. However, he could not make sense of the maid uniform. Hello, Sue. I came to play with you, Sue. Can I bother you for a bit? Judging by her question, she was clearly taking him for a fool. Who are you? He reached for the sword at his waist as he questioned her. That question was utterly meaningless. However, he had nothing else to say. Her existence was so ridiculous that he did not even know where to start asking. I am Lupus Regina Sue, one of the maids who work for Ainsama Sue. The peculiar woman waved again as she greeted him. The meaning of what she Lupus Regina said gradually began to filter throughout his mind. What did you say? Barbro was so shocked that he forgot to wake the nearby soldiers. No, don't worry about that for now. That must have been really hard on you, Sue. Still, that really was unfair, Sue. A huge army of goblins like that's on the level of cheating, Sue. I saw them from behind the humans and enchanted, and it made me cry out in surprise, Sue. I didn't expect so many goblins would come out, ha. Lupus Regina laughed in an incredibly fake way. She was clearly trying to pick a fight, but Barbaro could no longer hold his feelings back. So why are you here? He could hear several people behind him reacting to his shout. Still, if this woman wanted to attack him, then her actions were far too bizarre. There was no need for her to appear before them. Or was this part of a plan to draw away their attention? Perhaps she intended to launch an ambush while everyone was listening to her. No, as the first prince, he knew he was very valuable. If he was lucky, he could negotiate. If he was unlucky, he would be a hostage. However, negotiating with them might be too much to ask for. He might end up becoming a prisoner of war. Barbaro felt the throne draw further and further away from him. That said, the people who should have been punished were the higher-ups in the kingdom, who did not know that there were so many goblins within that village before sending him there. If he became a prisoner of war, he ought to have a chance to meet Ainzu Elgaon. Perhaps he could trade him a quarter of the kingdom in exchange for his help to make himself king. Perhaps this was actually a blessing in disguise. Barbaro pondered that possibility. Well, there's only one reason I came here, Sue. Lupus Regina paused for a single breath, and then announced, I came to kill all of you, Sue. Barbaro blinked several times, and then he shouted, Huh? What the hell are you saying? Do you know who I am? I'm the first prince of the Riestis kingdom, Barbaro Andrianild Ryle Vyself. Oh, so you're a human, then, Sue. What's the difference, Sue? To us, the humans are equally worthless, Sue. But you're a prince, Sue. In that case, I see. You mean to say you'll kill everyone except me, right? I don't think that's a good idea. You need to take us prisoner and let someone live to bring the news back to father, otherwise things will be difficult in the upcoming negotiations. Lupus Regina tilted her head in surprise. No, what are you saying, Sue? Shall I repeat myself again, Sue? I came to kill all of you, Sue. Since I came to kill all of you, I'll kill each and every one of you, Sue. Are you particularly stupid, Sue? Oh well, that does make you a rarity, but it's not like I want that, Sue. What are you babbling about? Don't you know how valuable I am? I'm the first prince. Why are you thinking of killing me? Normally, you'd take me hostage and demand a ransom. No. Using me as a negotiation tool holds more merit than killing me, right? My, what a troublesome person you are. Lupus Regina grinned in a discomfiting manner. Then, she spoke gently and kindly, like she was explaining things to a child. You are not necessary to the plans of the matchless one, Ainzu Elgaon Sama, and so I will kill you. Do you understand? Barbaro was speechless. He understood that Lupus Regina was not joking or trying to probe his reaction with a threat. He swallowed unconsciously. You're serious? You're seriously going to kill me? Ah, that's a nice expression on your face, Sue. You've jumped a great deal in my internal ranking, Sue. Then, Barbaro was trying to smile with a twitching face, but Lupus Regina's face went blank in the next moment as she said, Ain Sama ordered me to exterminate all of you. Therefore I will not let any of you return alive. She immediately resumed her half-joking expression. So's anyway, I was thinking for a long time about what opponents you'd have fun with. In the end, I found the best playmates for a bunch of people who got their asses kicked by Goblin Sue. With a Jan, she raised a hand. A horde of shadowy shapes emerged from behind her, out of what seemed to be thin air. These are the redcaps that I had summoned for me, Sue. There were 30 of them. The goblins which revealed themselves resembled the army from back then, their bodies twisted and evil. All of them wore bright red caps and steel boots upon their feet. They carried hatchets which glowed blue in the moonlight. Enemy attack. What the hell are you doing? Wake up. Take up your arms. The enemy is upon us. Barbaro's bellowing woke the soldiers from their slumber. They bolted upright, and then stared at the enemy under the blinding moonlight. They're level 43, so really, they're kind of overkill for you. But the library didn't have any weaker goblins, Sue. Screams filled the air. The survivors of that hellish battle with the goblin army could not possibly muster up the fighting spirit to stand against more goblinoids. They did not draw their swords but scattered in all directions, running for dear life. Don't run. Fight. 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 Hurry up and protect me. Not a single soldier listened to Barbro's orders. The nobles ran for their horses as well. Aha! This is wonderful. You actually think you can escape on a plane like this? Ah, this is fun. This is the best. I love it. Lupus Regina's mocking laughter mirrored what Barbro was thinking. There was only one way to survive. He had to defeat his enemies. So there's people who think mounting up is going to help. Would you kindly chop off their legs for me, Sue? With a shrill cry of delight at the impending slaughter, the Redcaps sprang into action. They were like wild beasts. They ran amidst the fleeing masses. And then there was a scream. It came from one of the nobles who was trying to escape on horseback. It was followed by several more screams. There's fewer people now, so playtime's been shortened too. Well, that can't be helped, Sue. On my part, I'm going to have all kinds of fun, Sue. I might not have the abilities Sol-chan has, but I can show you a trick or two, Sue. Lupus Regina walked toward Barbro, who had his sword drawn. It was as though she was taking a walk through a field. The smile which split her beautiful face like a fissure chilled Barbro's heart with fear. It was only after 30 minutes that Barbro received Lupus Regina's permission to die. End of chapter.